Dr. Vikas, for your kind introduction, and it was really nice to listen things from my one of the closest friend. And I think we have been together for longest period.
Yeah. It's 11
And,
years.
Yeah, and I would like to request thanks to Asutosh. He was my roommate also. So we had a very nice time during in Ruya and Dhanvantari. But cutting short, I would like to start a topic that is very relevant. And Astos is always very, I don't know from where he takes an idea, and his selection of topic is always very interesting. So I also learned a lot when I was reviewing the literature to prepare this topic. And Sinhaji, can I share my screen now?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I think my screens is visible.
Yes.
So topic is basically managing the cardioembolic stroke in chronic kidney disease. So very interesting topic, and I think very relevant also. So basically, I would outline of my presentation would be, I would after the introduction, I would like to cover the brief pharmacokinetic of changes or pharmacological changes in CKD to understand what drug can be used and why it can't be used. Then brief review of coagulation cascade, risk stratification of stroke in atrial fibrillation when patient develops CKD, anticoagulants, what can be used in atrial fibrillation, what are the differences between warfarin and newer oral anticoagulants, and why a CKD with stroke is different in patient with CKD, and existing evidence to use newer oral anticoagulant in CKD, along with the conclusion. So we all know that stroke is leading cause of death and disability worldwide, and there with increasing longevity, there is exponential growth in stroke burden as well as burden of CKD and as well as heart disease. So when these all three together are intermingled, the situation becomes very complicated. And when we know that a stroke is heterogeneous, and it can be divided into various etiology, including cardioembolic is one of the important contributing about 25% of the total stroke. Others are large vessel or thrombotic in situ or lacunar, and many others. So cardioembolic stroke is a little bit different from other stroke because in place of giving antiplatelet, we give anticoagulant in these stroke. So, and we know that anticoagulant are having inherent property of increased bleeding also. So how this cardioembolic stroke, and we are when giving anticoagulant, especially in CKD patient, and CKD patient is not a CKD only, it is a spectrum from mild CKD to moderate CKD to severe CKD or end-stage kidney disease. So it is a spectrum. So although we are saying CKD, but it is not, guidelines are not similar for all the spectrum of CKD. Mild and moderate may behave like a normal person with normal renal function, and the complication starts when we are talking of advanced CKD or end-stage renal disease. Non-valvular atrial fibrillation, we divide non-valvular and valvular. Atrial valvular is whether prosthetic valve or rheumatic valve or any other structural abnormality. Non-valvular, when there is no structural abnormality, and then still patient is having atrial fibrillation, and it is one of the leading cause of cardioembolic stroke, and especially in CKD, its prevalence increases up to the 3 times. And interestingly, in patients with end-stage renal disease, there is increased chance of thromboembolism because of the associated atrial fibrillation, as well as paradoxical increase in bleeding risk. So we have to move in a narrow path when one side there is increased chance of thromboembolism and other side there is increased risk of bleeding. So, and interestingly, oral anticoagulant is so commonly used because it is one of the top 15 drugs prescribed in the patients with CKD. So we have to know it, which drug can be used, and warfarin is one of the most prescribed anticoagulants since long time. In even 1948, it was used as a poison, animal poison or rat poison, and then later on it was approved to be used in human being, and since last 75 years, it is being used as anticoagulant. But now, newer oral anticoagulants are trying to replace it because of better embolic and better prevention of cardioembolic stroke, as well as preferable or beneficial bleeding risk. For end-stage renal disease, we will discuss which can be used or which not can be used. So basic review, 2 slides, I will review a pharmacology of drug in a renal disease. So this is a basically this graph. This graph here, it is normal. If let's say it is a normal person, so the drug will be going out depending upon half-life. But if it's a once this drug is being given, so within this time it will go. But when patient is having chronic kidney disease or impaired kidney disease, then their peak will be high and clearance will be also delayed. And interestingly, if multiple drugs are being given, multiple doses are being given, so next 24 hours, again peak will be more higher, and next 24 hours peak will be higher, and delayed will excretion will be delayed. So carryover, there is carryover of drugs for next day. So same principle appears if we are giving a drug that is metabolized by kidney to a patient. So first dose may be normal, but later on in the repeated dose, there will be peak dose, and resulting in it's a toxicity. Warfarin, interestingly, is not metabolized by kidney, and basically CYP system inactivates it, and inactivated metabolites is excreted. So does not depend upon kidney for its elimination. So it was being used and since long time in patients with mild to moderate kidney disease. We will discuss separately about end-stage renal disease. Now, newer onset anticoagulants, we are having dabigatran first came, then apixaban, rivaroxaban, edoxaban. Probably this is not available. I'm not aware whether it is available or not, but these are available in India also. And interestingly, renal excretion is maximum with dabigatran, but all of them are having at least more than 25% of the are being excreted from the kidney. So as renal dysfunction will more, the excretion will be delayed. So it is, so again, as mild, its dose and its time of excretion is increased. I'm not going in details in this busy slide, and so we will discuss it later. Again, brief review of coagulation cascade, because where we are giving this slide is important, which drug is acting where. So ultimately, dabigatran is thrombin inhibitor, and so this is intrinsic and extrinsic. First professional classes we will remember this again, and then again here. So this slide, dabigatran is working on thrombin inhibitor, and all X are working on factor 10A as anticoagulant. So this is group is suggesting oral anticoagulant, and here injectable or also anticoagulant. So heparin and low molecular weight heparin are working on thrombin and factor 10 also, and fondaparinux is factor 10. So activated factor. So these are the basic overview of various anticoagulant we are having in our basket. Ideal anticoagulant would be oral used with minimal food interaction, predictable response, no complications, low cost, and reversible. That means antidote should be available. Is it? So none of the anticoagulants are fulfilling ideal oral or ideal anticoagulant. However, newer oral anticoagulants appears to be impressive. Cost is another issue, but now probably its cost is also reduced with the introduction of generic forms. And the reversibility, also few of them are having antidotes also. We will discuss. So it is going towards ideal oral anticoagulant. So again, brief why cardioembolic stroke has important place in chronic kidney disease. Because non-valvular atrial fibrillation increases and with severity of disease, and in stage 2 CKD, it is non-valvular atrial fibrillation is up to the 6%, and stage 4 it would be 36%. So it is very its prevalence increases with severity of disease, and stroke and systemic embolism are frequent and a dangerous complication of non-valvular atrial fibrillation. Interestingly, CKD is independent risk factor for bleeding. So one side we are having bleeding chance high, and another side we are having embolic phenomena, chance of embolic phenomena is also high. So we have to balance. So which drug? And so again we have to assess in this previous slide. So how can we assess the severity between these two, embolic phenomena and bleeding phenomena? So how can we assess? So definitely we used to use some scoring system. So what is the chance of embolic phenomena and what is chance of bleeding thing? So so we are using two scales. One is Chad's VASC score, and another is Hasbleed. So multiple scales are there. I selected only these and these two. So this scale gives a severity of chances of embolic phenomena, and this scale gives predicts about possibility of bleed. So again, congestive heart failure or LV dysfunction, 1 point age less more than 72. I am not going details; these are available everywhere. So we try to stratify chance of bleeding is high or chance of embolic phenomena is high. But is it this scale was derived for normal population without CKD, so or mild or moderate CKD. But whether this scale is valid for patients with end-stage renal disease, because congestive heart failure or LV dysfunction, fluid overload may be mimicker of that. Hypertension also when dialysis or after dialysis or before dialysis, the fluid, it may be variable. So a lot of variability will be there when we are using this scale in a patient with advanced CKD. Again, bleeding. These all are for Leville INR bleeding. These all are for a person with normal or mildly deranged CKD. But when severe CKD is there, platelet dysfunction. So there is no score scale to assess the platelet dysfunction in those patients. So again, this scale, although we are having, but whether it can be applied directly to patient with CKD, these questions, we don't know answer of these questions. So when we score it, and then we try to stratify Chad's 2 VASC score, and according to that, if there is 0 score, no antiplatelet or anticoagulant is required. If score is 1 more than or equal to 2, oral anticoagulant is required. And oral, along with these cardiologists, we are having fortunate Dr. Vikas here, so he is a better person than me to explain these things. But these devices can be used, and newer oral anticoagulants are having good, high level of recommendation, and voltage vitamin K antagonist is also having high level of recommendation, and it is well known, time tested. This is newer, now trying to replace it. So we are having these two factors. So if high risk of this, or this is another scale, similar scale, so both are more or less both are validated and parallel to each other. This is little bit vascular. This scale also takes care of vascular abnormalities and gender, and here it is not there. So basically, ultimately, if high risk is there, we stratify moderate risk and low risk, and accordingly we plan for prophylaxis against thromboembolic phenomena. Again, Hasbleed, the same thing. If high score more than or equal to 3, indicative of need for regular clinical review and follow up, and if score is more than 4 or equal to 4, high risk of major bleeding. So again, if patient is having high risk of major bleeding, we have to think about the anticoagulant to be given. If high risk of and embolic risk, this score is high, we have to think about prophylaxis. This score is high, we have to it is a relatively contraindication for anticoagulant. So we have to weigh between two risk factors. So again, it is the same thing. This risk factor we discussed is already. So congestive heart failure, hypertension, and anemia, these are difficult to assess in a CKD patient. Similarly, in the CKD patient, has this score also CKD. This has underestimates bleeding in CKD. So again, so for again a patient with atrial fibrillation and CKD, to prevent a stroke, we have to weigh between these two risk factors. Interestingly, few trials have suggested that even highest bleeding risk or highest has bleed risk was there, and the patient with lowest thromboembolic risk, so has bleed score high and Church to West score is low, still so appears as that bleeding risk would be high in this patient, so anticoagulant should be given or not. The study shows that net benefit of oral anticoagulant was seen in these group of patients. So again, so so that means that thromboembolic risk is more dangerous than bleed. But again, we have to remember these are patients with normal or mild to moderate renal function, not a severe or end-stage renal disease. Now we will discuss about few various kinds of anticoagulant, because topic given to me was anticoagulants. So heparin, when heparin comes, low molecular weight heparin comes, this is mainly when the acute setup or when we need a bridging. So whether there are a lot of controversies about bridging, we will discuss further about bridging. But if patient is having high risk, high chance of thromboembolic phenomena, high chance of high risk, that means Church score is very high, injectable anticoagulants may be required. And again, we are having unfractionated versus low molecular weight heparin. So it is low molecular weight heparin has few advantages. Monitoring is not required. It is, we know all the things. It is predictable, and but scenario changes. Normal person low molecular weight heparin would be better, but scenario changes when patient is having end-stage renal disease. We will discuss it further. Again, warfarin also, it is, we know that it is vitamin K dependent and inhibits all the vitamin K related procoagulant as well as anticoagulant. So so it has been proven by studies that oral anticoagulants are safe, effective in stroke prevention in non-dialyzing CKD patients also. Why? Because most of the trials, most of the trials, what they used, there was exclusion criteria when GFR is less than 30 or 25. So most of the trial, when they evaluated warfarin versus oral anticoagulant or oral anticoagulant versus aspirin, they excluded patients with end-stage renal disease. So what the evidences, major evidences we are having, that is only if GFR is more than 25 or more than 30. Below that, we are having only data from observational studies of retrospective cohort. So although vitamin K antagonist or warfarin is good in normal person with normal renal function or mild to moderate renal function, in end-stage renal disease, warfarin risk of warfarin is reported to be higher than the expected benefits. Another form of bleeding. Another problem with warfarin is calciphylaxis in patients with end-stage renal disease, leading to calcification in various arteries, leading to skin necrosis and other areas necrosis. Another aspect of CKD is that because of the malnutrition, multiple drug interactions, and chronic illnesses leading to fluctuation in the renal function and resulting unpredictable status of warfarin in these group. So can we use warfarin in end-stage renal disease? It's controversial, and probably few recommendations are says if GFR is less than 10 to 15 or patient, it should not be used. So a meta-analysis of 12 studies of vitamin K antagonists with more than 17,000 hemodialysis patients. So these are patients requiring on regular hemodialysis. There was no reduction in, when warfarin was used to prevent a stroke, there was no reduction in mortality or ischemic stroke. So it came out to be non-effective. However, paradoxically, 21% increased chance of total bleeding risk in those patients, suggesting that warfarin may be hazardous. But again, in this study, many patients with low thromboembolic risk factors were put on warfarin. So again, there is a confusion arised. If if embolic risk is low, then why we should give warfarin? Definitely, this is the cohort that may not be benefited. So but this is a problem of observational studies, and so we don't have answer. But it was not found to be very effective by existing evidence. Again, another meta-analysis, 6,000 patients with end-stage renal disease. There was no benefit with increased major bleed. Again, another score, they used another score, and again for thromboembolism risk, and this was not reported. Subgroup analysis of few studies reported that benefit of anticoagulants will be high if CHADS2 VASC score is high. Then anticoagulant may be beneficial, but it is harmful if this score, embolic risk, is low. So again, if end-stage renal disease or dialysis, we have to weigh the risk versus high risk versus low risk of thromboembolic phenomena, as well as risk of bleeding, and then on individualized manner we can give on an oral anticoagulant. Again, newer oral anticoagulant, what are the main we discussed? So all four newer oral anticoagulants were stabilized by four large clinical trials. And as we discussed, the patients with low renal GFR were excluded. So again, what the data we are having, NOAC was superior or non-inferior to warfarin in thromboembolic reduction, and also safer by 20 to 30% reduction in major bleeding, including intracranial bleeding. That is more worrisome for us. So NOACs are found to be equivalent or superior to warfarin in prevention of embolic phenomena, as well as safer also. But again, the group was having normal renal function or mild to moderate renal function. Severe renal function were excluded. So we can't apply these findings to patients with end-stage renal disease. Again, meta-analysis of these studies of again milder non-end-stage renal disease should reduce risk of stroke. So most of studies were consistent about their finding by prevention as well as safety. So considering about NOACs. So after encouraged by these results, now since last decade, newer oral anticoagulants are replacing warfarin both in general population and in non-end stage renal disease. But again, what to do in patients with end stage renal disease? We are having no data. So again, it is the same thing. And we are having four newer oral anticoagulants: dabigatran, apixaban, rivaroxaban, and doxaban. So which one to be used? So all studies were, there is no study who is compared 1-to-1, but overall profile suggested that apixaban was associated with less major bleeding than dabigatran and rivaroxaban in patients with moderate renal impairment. So apixaban is coming out to be one of the preferred drug. So again, as discussed, not only malnutrition and those things, renal patients are very supposed to be hemodynamically unstable, and that's why we have to select the best drug. So this slide is suggestive various dose of anticoagulants with their renal function. So a patient with GFR more than 50, dabigatran may be used 150 milligram twice a day, but when it is reduced, dose to be reduced. Apixaban, we should have few words. Apixaban up to the 30 ml of per minute of GFR, usually 5 milligrams twice a day, but a selected patient, if he is having creatinine more than 1.5, body weight is less than 60, or age more than 80 years. So any two of these three are there, even GFR is better, dose needs to be reduced. So this is important point I interested to highlight. Again, now if there is no trial, how 30 to 15 ml per minute, this there is a recommendation. So these recommendations came out from pharmacological studies, where there are found to be that these doses of these drugs are not getting accumulated, even if we are giving in end-stage renal disease. So we'll discuss it later. So again, dose is reduced and it is being given if GFR is low also. But various recommending bodies are having conflicting recommendation when the patient comes in this group or this group. So what we discussed, so is warfarin I don't know how to minimize this, is obliterating my headers. So is warfarin is useful in advanced renal disease? It is preventing stroke. So in this study, a meta-analysis again of observational, because we have to obey the data from observational studies. So in this observational studies, again in end-stage renal disease, warfarin was not effective. It was major harmful. So warfarin, definitely there is clear signals of harm of using warfarin in a patient with end-stage renal disease. So what to do? What to do if patient of end-stage renal disease or advanced renal disease is having atrial fibrillation, high chance of thromboembolic phenomena, then and a low risk of bleeding? Then what to do? Is because we are having no evidence from the for the neural oral anticoagulant in this group. So should we use? Should not we use? So there is always a controversies, and two papers very nicely written. One was against pro, and one was against the use of these things. And then I tried to gather information from those two papers. So again, so NOAC was also having significantly higher risk of complication compared to warfarin in this study. We found one study published in 2015, but this limitation of this study was that number of patients on NOAC were small, and the patients who were prescribed in oral anticoagulants were more likely to have a history of bleeding compared to warfarin. This is obviously, if a patient is coming to me and if having chance of bleeding, high chance of bleeding, or is having high bleeding risk, then I would not prefer warfarin, because I know warfarin is very harmful or very having bleeding. So I would, so there is selection bias. So patients, serious patients or higher risk patients with high risk of bleeding were given newer oral anticoagulant. So what the data we got from this study was biased. So we can't take directly results of this study. So again, newer oral anticoagulant, which one to be used? So subgroup analysis of few trials suggested that neural anticoagulants may be safe. So again, other chance of warfarin is that advantage of neural oral warfarin is that lower chance of vascular calcification and lower chance of anticoagulant associated nephropathy, along with better safety. So again, all pharmacologic file says that neural oral anticoagulant may be safer in end-stage renal disease. So can we use? This answer to this question only will come from good trial. So in one study, although these were observational study, apixaban exposure was only modestly higher in patient with end-stage renal disease compared to healthy subject. So this was again a few only. This was not a big because it was the drug concentration study. So apixaban is given in patients with end-stage renal disease and found to be that its level is not very high despite end-stage renal disease. Another study, rivaroxaban was also not eliminated by dialysis, but there was no accumulation even after multiple doses. So these two pharmacological studies suggest that in CKD patient, contrary to our belief that it will be increasing, their dose is not increasing. So it may have potential role in end-stage renal disease. So I'm not going this slide. So Again, so this, these evidences suggest that neuro-oral anticoagulant may be individualized, considering the thromboembolic and the bleeding risk. And again, the interesting and most important part is that we are having available antidotes for few of the neuro-oral anticoagulants. So initially it was the fear that if bleeding starts or patient develops a stroke requiring thrombolysis or MI requiring thrombolysis, so how can we do if we are not having antidotes? But now we are having antidotes through these drugs. So ultimately, apixaban appears to be safer amongst all neuro-oral anticoagulants in the form of better risk-benefit profile. So previous, now we should discuss a little bit about guidelines. Previous American Heart Association, American Cardiac Society and Heart Rhythm Society guideline endorsed that warfarin should be the first line therapy in stage 4 renal disease or stage 5 renal disease, despite on dialysis, despite the poor very controversial results. And European Heart Rhythm Association recommends that neuro-oral anticoagulant should not be used in patient with creatinine clearance less than 30 ml. So there is conflicting guidelines, which was previous. But despite these negative guide recommendations, neuro-oral anticoagulants use is being increased. So why? So considering those facts, in 2019, American Heart, again that association gave a soft recommendation for using anticoagulants with either warfarin or now apixaban came in picture, with a caveat of further study is warranted. But now they are not stopping us to use, so it may be used carefully. Another society says that high quality, insufficient high quality evidence to recommend warfarin or vitamin K antagonist for prevention of stroke in CKD. So again, saying warfarin is not, it should not be used. So what to be used? So reduced dose of apixaban, endoxaban, and rivaroxaban may be given in patients with estimated glomerular filtration rate of 15 to 30 is recommended by US FDA. So it's coming in picture. So it is getting importance. Also, US FDA also approved a low dose of dabigatran based solely on pharmacokinetic data, but patients should be dialyzed because dabigatran has renal excretion, mainly renal excretion. So, and it can be dialyzed from hemodialysis. So it can also be used. So from having these, so we need a trial because this is a scientific forum. So I also advocate a need of trial of 3-armed when aspirin 325 or 150 any dose versus warfarin to keep INR 2 to 3 versus apixaban 2.5 milligram orally to have an answer of what we discussed, that for the management of end-stage renal disease. Now, few words about antidote. We are having antidote for dabigatran as well as for apixaban, rivaroxaban. So if these antidotes are available, our confidence to use these drugs also increases because our one fear of not to reverse it is a little bit reduced. Hemodialysis can be used in dabigatran also because it is but these are not hemodialysable. I'm now bridging what we discussed, bridging anticoagulants. When patient of, let us say a patient is coming to us with cardioembolic stroke and high risk of thromboembolism again, or he is having clot, or there is chance of atrial fibrillation and clot, and so definitely we have to put him on injectable anticoagulant, but no bridging for low risk. So one concept of that protein C, protein S inhibition, warfarin we are using. So heparin, first give heparin and then warfarin. So if low risk, then this bridging is not required. Or for moderate risk, individualized risk decision to be taken. And from where these risks are coming, again, that CHADS2 VASC score we are using to give the assess the high or moderate or low risk. So if patient is having CKD or end-stage renal disease, in place of low molecular heparin, that is enoxaparin, most commonly well known, unfractionated heparin is recommended because it is mainly cleared by reticuloendothelial system. low molecular weight heparin, especially in enoxaparin, is not recommended in patients with CKD or end-stage renal disease, because it is having higher bleeding risk, because it's a smaller size and longest half-life. But other low molecular weight heparin, deltaparin or tenjaparin, these are having relatively larger molecule and found to be maybe safe. Especially tenjaparin is found to be safer in patients with chronic kidney disease. Again, coronary syndrome, few words. Either unfractionated heparin or dose reduced enoxaparin for non-end stage kidney disease. But if there is only unfractionated heparin, for those are on dialysis, so no low molecular weight heparin in patients with those. And bivalirudin, a direct thrombin inhibitor, may be alternative to low molecular weight heparin if creatinine clearance is low. But problem is that it is not so good anticoagulant, so higher chance of instant thrombosis would be there. So again, we have to rely on heparin. Again, the problem of predictability, dose monitoring, those things are there in those cases. So one slide about how can we change oral warfarin to newer oral anticoagulant or reverse. So if a patient is taking warfarin, so his INR, three conditions we are having: subtherapeutic INR, higher INR, or good INR. If subtherapeutic INR, start newer oral anticoagulant immediately, no problem. If good INR, start newer oral anticoagulant on next day, immediately or next day, and they stop warfarin. And if good higher INR, stop oral anticoagulant, wait for 1 or 2 to 3 days, repeat, recheck, and if it comes to normal or subtherapeutic, start newer oral anticoagulant. If more than 3, postpone newer oral anticoagulant. So only this is the recommendation. Again, newer oral anticoagulant to reverse. If reverse is required, continue newer oral anticoagulant and start with warfarin, loading dose or whatever we want, and monitor it. If INR is less than 2, repeat INR, continue both. Only edoxaban dose should be reduced. Other newer anticoagulant to be continued until we are achieving target INR. When we achieve target INR, stop newer oral anticoagulant. So concluding, we can conclude here that newer oral anticoagulant are safe and effective in mild to moderate CKD. Advanced CKD, warfarin may be harmful. Pharmacology of newer oral anticoagulants are favorable, but as we are not having good clinical evidence to recommend its use in end-stage renal disease, but apixaban appears to be a promising molecule, and in individualized basis, it can be used in end-stage renal disease. Availability of antidote also changing the scenario. And if anticoagulants is not indicated, non-pharmacological treatment such as left atrial appendage occlusion may be considered. Sometimes, in fact, no therapy is best choice for that individual patient.